Hello, everyone. Today we will have 3 interesting stories. Before we get to that, I want to ask you to subscribe, like, and be sure to write comments in order to participate in the development of the community. Write how to improve my community, current topics in the stories you are interested in, and much more. I read and listen to all the comments. People write me stories by mail from different countries. There are problems with translation. I apologize for this. I will work on it and try to fix these errors. I want to thank everyone for their support and the people who wrote to me by mail. Broadcast news stories. New videos on my channel are published every 2 days at 7 p.m. Don't forget to put a bell in order not to miss new videos. And now let's go! Hello, I want to tell you my story. I'm 39 years old. I have an athletic physique. Perhaps I'm not the standard of beauty on 10-point scale. I will give myself a score of 80. I will give myself a score of 80. ED started from scratch and achieved a lot. I didn't get a higher education, but I studied what I needed in this life. My wife is 34 years old. She is a slim and beautiful girl. Men always stuck to her like flies. I thought it was like flies sticking to honey, but it turned out it was like flies sticking to shit. We met when she was 19 years old. A year later, we got married. I was her first man, and she was my second girlfriend. We didn't have children, but we wanted to have children next year. But since I'm telling this story, we won't have children anymore. My wife works as an economist at a prestigious firm and holds the position of head of department. A week ago, I loved her very much and thought she loved me. We had a happy family that many people dream of. But a month ago, I was on a business trip. So happened that I was released earlier than expected. I decided to make a surprise. I flew home at 11 p.m. and decided not to wake my wife. I stayed the night at a country house. I picked up a car from the parking lot and drove to a country house. When I drove up to the country house, I saw an unfamiliar car and the lights in my house are on. I took a wrench from the trunk and crept up to the windows of the house like in the movie. The summer was there was no one to be afraid of behind the high fence. The windows were open and I looked in the window. I saw a young guy about 23 years old sitting in my chair. He was enjoying and sat with his eyes closed. My wife was kneeling in front of him with her ass towards me. Well, I hope you understood what she was doing to him. It was as if the wind had thrown me over the windowsill. They got so carried away that they didn't even notice me. Then I asked, "Do you need a third partner?" They jumped up and bulged their eyes at me. They were very scared, and I can even imagine why. I was 190, 7 TM tall, and stood with a wrench in my hands with the face of a rabid gorilla. They stood naked in front of me. The guy peed on a carpet out of fright. My wife immediately said the famous phrase to everyone, "It's not what you thought." As if I could think of anything at that moment. It was the first time in my life that I hit a girl. I grabbed this guy by the hair and put him in the basement. When I returned to the house, my wife was crawling at my feet and begging for forgiveness. She kept saying, "I'm sorry. It was a mistake." But it's like in the movies. After 3 hours, I took this guy out of the basement and interrogated him. After that, I told him that if I met him again, I would kill him. In general, I filed for divorce. Our wedding day and divorce day are easy to remember. The divorce was successful and I started a new life. Of course, this did not happen immediately. I've been moving away from what happened for 6 months. In general, time heals. With this, the first story has come to an end, and we proceed to the second short story. Let's go. I don't even know where to start because I'm still shaking. I will try to explain everything clearly for you. We met 5 years ago, of which 2 years were just dating. We have been officially married for 3 years. We are 27 years old. We moved from a small town to the capital shortly before our wedding. We both got jobs and lived happily ever after. We quarreled very rarely and then for nothing. We loved to travel. I quickly rose through the career, started making good money and gave expensive gifts to my wife. We often went to good restaurants and I helped her change jobs with a salary 3 times higher. I had to work a lot for 12 hours every day, sometimes on weekends. When we both started working in the capital, we had less sex. I even recorded the days without sex for fun. Our record was 40 days without a single hint of sex. I've always been the initiator of intimacy. Although we used to be able to stay in bed all weekend, at the same time, even with my frantic schedule, I found the strength, even though I just wanted to come home and go to bed. I calmly expressed my dissatisfaction without claims of shouting and so on. I never raised my voice at her. She promised me to improve and went to the gym, started drinking vitamins. In a year, she has put herself in perfect shape. Other men started looking at her on the street. For 2 years, we had everything live in a fairy tale. We even started planning our children. But lately, I've started to feel coldness on her part. Like, in that period, that was a little earlier. But I did not express my claims anymore. I was just watching her and memorized her mobile phone password. I've looked through all my wife's messengers. As it turned out, in the first week she met a colleague at work and sent him her intimate photos. Plus, she wrote him very vulgar messages. But they didn't have sex, because at that moment I started making claims to my wife. She was afraid that I was guessing about everything and asked him to stop communicating with her. She didn't even delete the correspondence, you fool. She knew I trusted her. Then when we had an ideal in our relationship and I started talking about children, she thought I was definitely not going anywhere. She reconnected with him. I took screenshots of her correspondence and printed them out. Next weekend, I decided to show her everything. I decided that if she confessed and said that it was all true, then I would forgive her, and if not, then a divorce. As soon as I said I knew everything, she started denying everything. She said that I did not understand anything and distorted her words. In fact, there was nothing, and she didn't send him any intimate photos. I looked into her lying eyes and remembered how she swore her love to me. Then I took out the printouts and threw them in her face. She immediately started crying and grabbing my legs. She begged me for forgiveness. My heart bleeds because I loved her so much. But I was able to collect all my thoughts and told her that if she didn't get out of my house within an hour, I would kill her. I kicked my wife out and changed my phone number. I tried to come home from work later than usual because my wife was standing and waiting for me outside the house. I filed for divorce, but I lived like I was killed. I'm not happy about anything in this life. I've lost 8 kg. I work overtime to distract myself and not think about anything. I decided to join the gym. My friends advised me and said that it helped. Now I'm sitting and thinking it's good that it happened at a time when we didn't have children yet. So what is being done is for the best. People don't change. So I realized that if she cheated on me once, she will do it over and over again. This brings the second story to an end, and we move on to the third short story. Let's go. I am 51 years old and my wife is 45 years old. My son is 22 years old and my daughter is 20 years old. We all live together. Son and daughter are students. We have been married for 24 years. We had a normal life of quarreling and reconciliation and so on. I have my own small business. There's not as much money as we would like, but we have enough to live on. One day in the spring, I didn't feel very well at work. Age, work is nervous, and my body does not react very well to the weather. General, I had high blood pressure. I decided to go home early. I came home, opened the door, and heard my wife, son, and daughter talking in raised tones. I quietly went to the door leading to the hall and heard well what the conversation was about. My son accused mother of having a lover. He was my son's classmate. The whole university knew about it, and they laughed at my son. My son went to deal with this guy, and a fight broke out. My daughter was screaming hysterically, "How could you?" And if the father finds out? My wife replied to them so that they would not interfere in her personal life and would not tell me anything. At that moment, I couldn't stand it and went into their room. I managed to say that I heard everything. I don't remember anything after that. I woke up in the hospital because I had a heart attack. When I was moved to the ward, my wife came to me in the evening. I looked at her and went back to the intensive care unit. After that, she did not come to the hospital anymore. Only my children visited me. My son took the documents from the university. He said that he would join the Army, and when he returned to resume his studies, now he works for my company and replaces me. He seems to be good at handling his responsibilities. After the sanatorium, I returned home. The situation in the house was terrible. My daughter didn't talk to her mother. The son seems to communicate, but also not very well. My wife and I live as neighbors in different rooms, and she periodically spends nights out. We had a serious conversation, and she didn't really explain anything to me. She said it happened, and if you can, then forgive me. I said that as soon as I came to my senses, we would get divorced. She replied, "As you decide, so it will be." Autumn came and I filed for divorce and division of property. My children supported my decision and my wife went to live with a young lover in a hostel. After that, I decided that I would never forgive her, even if she came crawling on her knees. If you like the stories, give a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel, so as not to miss new videos. Now let's move on to the opinion of the author of the channel. The opinion of the author of the channel. According to tradition, I want to wish strength and patience to our heroes. All three stories were very informative and interesting. In the second story, the guy was very slow with the divorce, even though he knew about the betrayal. This is his big mistake. He should have put everything in its place right away. In the first story, a man hit his wife. I condemn it, but I understand perfectly well what kind of situation he was in. If I saw my wife on her knees giving a blowjob to another guy, I would kill them both. But I also want to wish our third hero good health. Just start living for yourself. Your children will help you with this. And in no case, waste your health on traitors and bad memories. If you have watched to the end, I want to say thank you very much. I love you all. Thank you for joining me on this exciting journey of love, betrayal, and redemption. I appreciate your support and encourage you to subscribe, like, and share this story. Your participation and feedback are invaluable for shaping our content and promoting mutual understanding and community growth. Until we meet again.